You're sitting across from him, the man you've invested your time, your heart, your dreams into. The man who once couldn't go a day without texting you, who used to light up every time you walked into the room. But now, something's changed. He's distant, cold, inconsistent. You feel like you're holding on to a version of him that only exists in your memories. You ask yourself, what happened to us? And worse, why does he no longer fear losing me? Let me tell you something powerful. A man who fears losing you is a man who cherishes you. A man who knows your worth, who recognizes your value, who sees you as the rare gem you are. But when that fear is gone, when he feels too safe, too certain, too assured that no matter how he treats you, you'll stay, you become something he takes for granted. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but quietly, slowly, without even realizing it, he stops appreciating the gravity of your presence. And you start to shrink, but not anymore. This isn't just a video, it's a reckoning, a transformation, a reclamation of your power, your worth, your magnetic energy. By the time we're done, you won't be asking how to trigger his fear of losing you. You'll embody the kind of woman who naturally evokes that fear, without games, without manipulation, but through your radiant, undeniable presence. Because it's not about making him afraid of losing you out of insecurity. It's about awakening his soul to the truth. You are not replaceable. You are not ordinary. And you were never meant to beg for love that should have been freely given. Let's begin. There is something ancient in us, something primal. It's in our DNA to seek love, connection, and belonging. For men, there's a wiring that links desire to pursuit, mystery, challenge, not in a shallow sense, but in the depth of presence. The kind of challenge that comes from standing in front of a woman who knows who she is. And here's the thing no one tells you. The fear of losing you isn't triggered by what you say. It's triggered by who you are when you're finally done begging to be seen. You've been taught that if you just give more, love harder, prove your loyalty, go the extra mile, that he'll finally realize how lucky he is. But what if I told you that the very act of overgiving is what made him stop feeling the need to fight for you? Let's take a step back. Picture Cleopatra, one of the most powerful women in history. The woman who captivated Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, two of the most powerful men of their time. She didn't do it with desperation. She didn't chase. She didn't shrink. She walked into rooms like she owned them, not because she thought she was better, but because she knew she belonged. That kind of energy is timeless, magnetic, unforgettable. When a man feels that energy, something awakens in him, a reverence, a fear, not of you leaving because you're playing a game, but a deep existential fear of what it would mean to lose the rarest soul he's ever known. But here's the catch. You can't fake this. You can't pretend to be that woman while you're crumbling inside from anxiety. You have to become her, rebuild her from the ashes of the versions of yourself you gave away. Because somewhere along the way, you gave up pieces of yourself to be loved. You silenced your truth to keep the peace. You made excuses for behavior that bruised your soul. You accepted crumbs and told yourself it was a feast. And the more you did that, the more he forgot who you really were. The journey back to power doesn't begin with revenge. It doesn't begin with making him jealous or ignoring his texts to get a reaction. That's manipulation. And you're done playing small. It begins with coming home to yourself. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you made a decision just for you? Not for how it would look to him, not for how it might affect the relationship, but for your own soul's alignment. When was the last time you chose silence over explaining yourself to someone who wasn't listening? When was the last time you walked away without making a dramatic exit and just quietly decided that your peace was more important than his approval? That's the beginning of magnetism. Not the kind that begs to be chased, but the kind that commands respect by its very existence. You see, men don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with presence, with the way you carry yourself, the energy that says, I am whole. You don't complete me, you complement me. When he senses that, the fear begins to rise, not because you threatened him, but because the deepest part of him realizes, if I lose her, I lose something that I may never find again. Now let's talk about the shift, the subtle yet seismic change that happens when a woman decides to reclaim her worth. It's not loud, it's not petty, it's not dramatic, it's quiet. It's in the way she stops texting first, the way she says no to plans that feel like an afterthought, the way she no longer over-explains her feelings or tries to be chill to keep the peace. It's in her standards, her absence, her silence. And it's devastating, because he starts to notice that the woman who used to light up when he walked into the room now glows from within, whether he's there or not. Let me tell you a story, a true one. There was a woman named Elena. She loved deeply, fully, completely. She gave her heart to a man who at first seemed just as committed, but over time, his effort dwindled. His texts became fewer, his presence more distracted. He knew she loved him. He could feel her soul bending to accommodate his absence. And slowly, he stopped showing up, until one day, she stopped waiting. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't make a scene. She just stopped, started rebuilding her life, started laughing again, dressing for herself, surrounding herself with people who fed her spirit. And suddenly, he was calling, texting, showing up. Why? Because the energy had shifted. Her light no longer revolved around him. She was the sun again, and he felt the chill of her absence. That is the fear of loss. Not born from threats or ultimatums, but from the realization that she no longer needs him to feel whole. That is your power. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to remember it. To walk like every step is a declaration of your value. To speak like your voice carries the weight of empires. To love like your heart is a sacred temple, not a bargain sale. But let's get practical. How do you start to trigger this fear in him? Authentically. With dignity, start by shifting your energy. Men respond not to what you say, but to how you feel about yourself. If your energy says, I need you to pick me, he will subconsciously feel safe taking you for granted. But if your energy says, I love myself too much to chase, he will feel the tension, the curiosity, the pull. It begins by turning inward. Ask yourself, what parts of me have I abandoned to feel loved? What dreams did I put on hold? What boundaries did I blur? Then begin to rebuild. Start doing things that ignite your soul, not for the gram, not for him, for you. Start dressing in a way that makes you feel magnetic. Start moving like you're the main character of your life. Start saying no without guilt. Saying yes without hesitation, saying I need space without fearing abandonment. This is not a performance. This is an embodiment. Men are more intuitive than we give them credit for. They can feel the moment you stop orbiting around them. They can sense when your world no longer revolves around their validation. And it scares them, not in a manipulative way, but in a holy way, the way a man feels when he stands in the presence of a woman who remembers her divinity. That's the fear that matters. Not the fear of losing control, but the fear of losing a woman whose love was a blessing. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to make him fear losing you is the moment he starts to, because your detachment isn't cold, it's sacred. It says, I love you, but I will never abandon myself again to keep you. That kind of woman is unforgettable. This is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll explore how your silence can be louder than any argument, how your standards become your boundaries, and how to become the kind of woman who doesn't ask for loyalty, she inspires it. Because this journey isn't about fear, it's about awakening. And you're just getting started. He'll notice it first in the silence, not the angry kind, not the kind that punishes or withholds. No, he'll notice the kind that feels like absence in the middle of a crowded room. The kind that once used to be filled with your warmth, your laughter, your effort, and now echoes with the weight of everything you've pulled back. Because when a woman who used to overextend suddenly stops explaining herself, stops overcompensating, stops reaching, a man feels it in his bones. You didn't need to block him. You didn't need to post some cryptic quote about self-worth. You didn't need to announce that you're done. You just shifted. And that shift, it's seismic. Because for the first time, he realizes that your presence wasn't a guarantee. That your love was never owed. It was gifted. And now, the gift has been quietly placed back in its box. Let's talk about silence, because it's one of the most misunderstood forms of communication. Most people think silence is passive. But the truth is, silence is sacred. It speaks the loudest when words would only dilute its power. It's in your calm withdrawal, your centered detachment, your refusal to beg for clarity when confusion is a form of control. When you stop responding to half-effort messages, when you stop initiating conversations he no longer shows up for, when you stop justifying your needs and start honoring them instead, that silence speaks volumes. It says, I no longer need you to understand me in order to choose me. It says, I'm not punishing you, I'm protecting myself. It says, I would rather be alone in truth than together in illusion. This isn't easy, I know, because when you love someone, every fiber of your being wants to bridge the distance. You want to fix it, mend it, heal it. But sometimes the most healing thing you can do for both of you is let him feel the weight of your absence. Because here's a truth no one tells you. A man cannot fear losing you if he's never experienced what it's like to miss you. If he always has access to you, your time, your energy, your reassurance, he never has to question what life would be like without it. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop chasing conversations, stop laughing at jokes that hurt you, stop pretending you're okay with the bare minimum, he starts to notice the void. And in that void, something powerful is born, clarity. He begins to remember the way your presence calmed him, the way your words poured life into his days, the way your touch grounded him. He starts to see what he couldn't before, not because he suddenly changed, but because your absence cleared the fog he was too comfortable living in. Real men don't fear silence. They respect it. They lean into it because they understand that when a woman goes quiet, something sacred is happening. She's listening to herself. She's discerning. She's remembering that peace isn't something she finds in another person. It's something she chooses every day. Let's look deeper at what fuels this fear of loss. It's not your anger. It's not your threats. It's not even your love. It's your self-possession. A woman who is self-possessed walks differently. She speaks with intention. She doesn't explain her boundaries. She lives them. She doesn't demand respect. She evokes it. And if he violates that respect, she doesn't shout. She doesn't argue. She exits. Not because she's heartless, but because her heart is too full to be emptied into a vessel that leaks. This kind of woman haunts a man, not because she's trying to, but because he remembers her long after she's gone. He remembers the way she looked at him fully, deeply, without masks. He remembers how safe he felt when she held space for his dreams, his wounds, his chaos, and he remembers that she left, not because she stopped loving him, but because she finally started loving herself. But let's bring it into the real world. I want to tell you about Maya. She was in a 3-year relationship. At first, it was magic dates, deep talks, passion, but slowly things shifted. He started pulling away, making excuses, always too busy. And every time she brought it up, he gaslit her. You're too emotional. You're always looking for problems. Why can't you just relax? She dimmed her intuition. She buried her needs. She watered down her brilliance to avoid being too much, until one day she woke up and didn't recognize herself. She realized she was doing all the work to maintain something that was crumbling in her hands, so she stopped. No ultimatum, no teary goodbye, just space. She took a weekend for herself, turned off her phone, rented a cabin, sat by the fire with her journal, cried, screamed, slept, prayed. When she came back, something had shifted. She was no longer performing love. She was becoming love. She started saying no, started prioritizing joy, started dancing in the mirror again, laughing with her friends, pursuing the career she'd put on hold. And her man, he felt it instantly. He started calling more, texting again, planning dates. But Maya was different now. She wasn't swayed by effort that came from fear. She was only available for consistency born from reverence. That is the difference. You don't want him to fear losing you out of panic. You want him to feel the sacred weight of what it means to lose access to someone who brings life to everything she touches. Let's talk about emotional contrast. This is key in triggering a man's realization of your value. You see, human beings respond to contrast. When something is always available, it fades into the background. But when it's gone, when the color drains from the world in its absence, that's when you wake up. A man must experience the emotional contrast of your presence versus your absence. He must feel the difference between being nourished by your energy and starving without it. He must taste the silence you leave behind and realize that it's not emptiness. It's the echo of everything you used to give. So, how do you create emotional contrast without games? You stop being the only one holding the emotional weight of the relationship. You stop being the one who always texts first. You stop being the therapist, the planner, the emotional anchor. You stop showing up for someone who doesn't meet you there. And in that space, you build yourself. You pursue your own joy. You pour into friendships. You say yes to new experiences. You explore. You evolve. And without a word, you begin to shine in a way he can't ignore. It's the shine of a woman who is no longer begging to be chosen. She has chosen herself. That kind of shine, it burns into a man's memory. He may try to replicate it with others. He may distract himself, rebound, escape. But deep down he knows there was something different about her. Something deep, something sacred, and I let it slip. This is the fear that matters, not the fear of punishment, but the fear of loss that comes with clarity. Clarity that only comes when a man is no longer wrapped in the comfort of your overextension. Clarity that only comes when you stop performing emotional labor for both of you. Clarity that only comes when your silence becomes louder than your presence. And here's the most powerful truth of all. If he truly loves you, this fear will transform him. He will not just come back with flowers and apologies. He will come back changed, clearer, more grounded, ready to rise, because the right man doesn't fear losing you just for his own comfort. He fears it because he knows that in losing you, he risks losing the greatest version of himself that he became in your light. But if he doesn't, if he disappears, fades, then let him, because your healing is not contingent on his awakening. You don't become magnetic just to get him back. You become magnetic so that even if he never comes back, you still win, because you've come home to yourself. He remembers you most clearly when the world goes quiet, in the stillness between text messages that never come, in the silence of his own mind when distractions lose their flavor. It doesn't happen right away. At first, he tells himself he's fine, that your absence isn't a big deal, that you'll come back. Because you always do. But days turn into weeks, and what he once called space begins to feel like a black hole he can't climb out of. And here's the truth. Men don't process loss the way women do. They don't always feel the absence immediately. Their emotional digestion is slower. They suppress, compartmentalize, numb themselves with work, distractions, ego. But time has a way of stripping illusions. And one morning, maybe while shaving or scrolling through his phone or lying awake at 3 a.m., he'll feel it. Not just the loss of a woman, but the loss of the emotional home he never realized he'd built in you. Because you weren't just someone he dated, you were his mirror. His soft place to land, his challenge and his calm. You were a doorway to a version of himself he didn't even know he was capable of. And now that door is closed. Let's talk about the psychology of masculine attachment, because once you understand how it works, you'll stop trying to convince a man to value you and start embodying the kind of presence he can't live without. There are 3 powerful emotional drivers in masculine psychology that, when activated in a healthy way, make a man fear losing you on a soul-deep level. Respect, inspiration, emotional resonance. Let's unpack each. First, respect is the foundation of masculine attraction. Not your beauty, not your sex appeal, not how well you understand him. It's how you respect yourself. A man may be drawn to many women, but he will only stay where he is consistently challenged to rise. And that challenge doesn't come through criticism, it comes through embodiment. When you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel worthy, when you communicate boundaries without anger, when you walk away with grace instead of chaos, you create a presence that forces him to examine who he is. This kind of woman doesn't chase love. She magnetizes it. Not because she plays hard to get, but because her self-worth makes her rare. She's not impressed by potential. She responds to action. She's not available for breadcrumbs. She's nourished by full meals, or she eats alone. And that kind of standard, it terrifies an unready man, but it awakens the right one. Because here's the secret. The masculine craves a reason to be great, and a woman who respects herself becomes that reason, not by saving him, but by refusing to shrink for him. Second, we have inspiration. Have you ever noticed how men will talk about that one woman they never quite got over, the one who lit a fire inside them, that woman inspired him? Not with perfection, but with presence. She had a vision for her life. a fire in her soul. She was building something, whether it was a business, a dream, a life of meaning. She didn't orbit around him. She was the sun in her own sky. And that fire made him want to be closer, not to dim it, but to match it. You see, men fall in love through admiration. They need to feel like they're witnessing something extraordinary, not in status or money or fame, but in when you stop making him the center of your emotional universe and start becoming the woman you've always wanted to be, he feels it. He watches you speak with more conviction. He sees the way others are drawn to your light. He hears the music in your laugh again. And suddenly fear sets in, not the fear of abandonment, but the fear that you're becoming someone he's no longer aligned with. That unless he grows too, he'll lose access to a version of you that no longer needs his approval to shine. This fear, it either cracks him open or breaks him down. Either way, you win, because you're no longer waiting. You're expanding, you're inspiring not just him, but yourself. Third, we have emotional resonance. This is the most subtle but the most powerful. Emotional resonance is what makes you unforgettable. It's not about fixing him. It's about feeling with him. It's how you looked at him when he spoke of his childhood wounds and didn't flinch. It's how you knew what he meant when he couldn't find the words. It's how you sat with his storms, not to calm them, but to be a lighthouse through them. A man may try to replace you physically, but emotional resonance, that haunts him, because he can sleep with other people, but he won't feel seen the way you saw him. And here's the irony. You didn't do it to manipulate him. You did it because that's who you are. You feel deeply. You care fiercely. You connect on a level that most people aren't brave enough to go. But now you've learned the sacred truth. Not everyone deserves that depth. You no longer hand your emotional resonance out like a free trial. You preserve it. You share it with those who are emotionally available, who reciprocate, who earn the privilege of access to your soul. And when he realizes that, when he remembers what it was like to be felt, not just touched, he'll either rise into the emotional maturity you deserve, or he'll run, because the mirror you held up is too honest. Either way, he will never forget you, because emotional resonance creates imprints, not impressions. Now let's move into something ancient, something primal, something that women have known for centuries, but modern dating culture has tried to strip away. Feminine energy. Not in a wear flowy dresses and light candles way, but in the way you move, live, and breathe as someone who is deeply rooted in her worth, her joy, her magnetism. You don't chase, you attract. You don't demand, you allow. You don't fight to be seen, you embody visibility. This energy doesn't beg for love, it becomes love, and watches who is capable of rising into it. Feminine energy is the stillness that invites. It's the softness that holds power. It's the refusal to rush what's meant for you. A woman in her feminine knows that her presence is the gift. She knows that her value is not in proving or performing, it's in being. And the more rooted she is in her essence, the more any man in her orbit will start to sense, if I don't honor this, if I don't match this, I will lose this. Not because she'll scream or beg or demand, but because she'll disappear back into herself, and that silence will be deafening. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. Right now, there's someone watching this who feels that lump in her throat, that ache in her chest, that deep, raw knowing that she's been giving too much, chasing too hard, settling too often. If that's you, breathe. You don't need to change overnight. You just need to remember who the hell you are. You are not replaceable.